Alright guys, since my videos keep getting taken down and flagged for hateful speech or something like that, we're just gonna pull out some interesting stuff in this book, okay? I'm not saying it's true. This is for educational purposes only, okay? It's about real people, though, that really existed, okay? 1845, Andrew Jackson. Everybody know who that is? He dies. He leaves instructions for the following inscription to be placed upon his tombstone in accordance with what he regarded as his greatest service to humanity. The inscription is, "I killed the bank." Why would he want to do that, I wonder? This is done and is, of course, in reference to the fact he destroyed the Rothschilds' second bank of the United States in 1836. Okay, we have in 1847. We may not know who this is, but we need to understand kind of what we're dealing with in this book here. Lionel de Rothschild, who is now married to the daughter of his uncle, Cowman Karl Mayer Rothschild, is elected to the parliamentary seat for the city of London. A requirement for entering Parliament to take an oath in the true faith of a Christian, Lionel de Rothschild refuses to do this due to his Judaic faith. So they are just in their religion as Christians are, which renounces Christ, and as a result, his seat in Parliament remains empty for 11 years until new oaths are allowed. Interestingly, he managed to keep his parliamentary seat for 11 years while he remained unable to represent his constituency at any votes in Parliament during that time. And moving on to Karl Marx. He publishes the Communist Manifesto. Interestingly, at the same time as he is working on this, Karl Ritter of Frankfurt University is writing the antithesis, which goes on to form the basis for Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, I cannot say this word. But anyway, is later developed into fascism and Nazism and will be used to foment the First and Second World War. Moving on, Marx, Ritter, and his fancy word are all funded and under the instruction of the Red Shields. That's what I'm going to call them. The idea behind this scheme is that those who direct the overall conspiracy could use the differences in so-called ideologies to enable them to divide larger and larger factions of the human race into opposing camps so that they could be armed and then brainwashed into fighting and destroying each other, and particularly in destroying all political and religious institutions. This is essentially the same plan put forward by Weishaupt by 1776. Interestingly, Marxism, communism, and its derivative, socialism, when seen years later in practice, are nothing but state capitalism and rule by a privileged minority exercising despotic and total control over majority, which is left with virtually no property or legal rights. This explains why the Red Shields were so interested in funding these ideologies, which would subsequently develop into democracy, a system of the two-party state in which both parties are controlled by the same force, and while they may squabble over insignificant issues to give them the impression of opposing one another, are y'all paying attention? They actually follow the same basic ideology. This is why the inhabitants of democracy soon discover that it doesn't matter who they vote for, nothing ever changes. Exhibit A of what we're going through. Alright, in 1858, we're back to Lionel de Red Shield here. Finally takes his seat in the Parliament when the requirement to take an oath in the true faith of a Christian is broadened to include other oaths. He becomes the first openly Jewish member of the British Parliament. Oh, well, this is interesting. This is about, kind of like Civil War. But the Civil War. In the American South, since American independence, a close business relationship had developed between the cotton growing aristocracy, however you say that, and the cotton manufacturers in England. The cotton was even delivered from America to France and Britain on on ships. The Red Shields decided that this was America's Achilles heel that they could exploit to reestablish themselves in America following the destruction of their central bank by President Andrew Jackson in 1836. The Red Shields had prepared long for this, and this year the southern states of America contained a vast number of Red Shield agents. They carefully manipulated the population by conspiring with local politicians they had in their pocket and spreading propaganda amongst the people. This resulted in the secession of South Carolina on December 29, 1860. Only a few weeks later, another 6 states would join the conspiracy against the Union and form a breakaway nation called the Confederate States of America, with just Jefferson Davis as its president. In order to provoke the North, these Red Shield agents and their brainwashed followers, which we have a lot today, raid armies, seize forts, arsenals, mints, and other Union property. Even members of President Buchanan's cabinet conspired to destroy the Union by damaging the public credit and working to bankrupt the nation. Buchanan claims to deplore secession, but takes no steps to check it, even when a United States ship is fired upon by South Carolina shore batteries. And in 1861, 1 month after the inauguration of President Abraham Lincoln, this is his assassination. We'll cut this off because it's 7 minutes long.